Hey everybody. Now, I thought this was for teenagers. You guys are really sophisticated-looking teenagers. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my book, the backstory, because I think it, I know it's at a reading, but I thought it was kind of an interesting story. It's unusual. So my book is a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland. You know, Alice is deeply seated in popular culture. I don't know if you know, it's the third most quoted literary works in the world. And it's universally accepted that Lewis Carroll, the author, was inspired to write his books to entertain a little girl named Alice Little, quote-unquote, the real Alice. Well, I made a startling discovery. Everything the world believes to be true about the fairy tale Alice's adventures, about the author, Lewis Carroll, and especially his muse, Alice Little, is one big fat lie. I know, it's hard to imagine, but let me tell you the story behind the story. Because it happened a number of years ago. I was in England for the world premiere of Something About Mary, and I had a chance to go to the British Museum. And at the British Museum, they had this remarkable exhibit of ancient cards, like playing cards and tarot cards, every kind of card you could imagine. But what caught my attention at the very end of the exhibit was the only incomplete deck of cards. And on these cards were hand-painted images that reminded me of Lewis Carroll's fairy tale, except these images were dark and twisted and had this whole goth vibe going. And I thought, hey man, what's up with these cards? They're so cool. Where'd they come from? And I became obsessed with learning everything I could. And so I was telling all my friends, hey, go check out this deck of cards at the British Museum. When my friend Robert, he said, Frank, can I tell you something? All you do is talk about these cards. I go, yeah, what's the problem? He goes, it's boring, man. I'm like, come on, I like the cards, all right? He goes, look, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to introduce you to an antiquities dealer. And my friend, he sells, trades, and collects cards, and you can talk to him for hours. But if I give you his phone number and his name, you have to promise me something. I go, okay, what? What? He goes, you have to promise to shut up about these cards, man. I'm like, all right, you don't like the cards. Give me the number. So he writes down the number, and then I see the name, and it says Mr. Buffington. I'm like, come on, are you putting me on? Is this guy for real? And he goes, Frank, this guy's the foremost expert in all things to do with antiquities and cards. So I called up Mr. Buffington. I went to visit him. I called him up and I said, and I introduced myself and I said, do you know anything about the incomplete deck of cards at the British Museum? And he said, Mr. Beddor, not only do I know about the cards, I have in my possession the remaining cards to the incomplete deck. And I was like stunned, and I said, you got to be kidding me, where do you live? I'll be there in 5 minutes. He goes, calm down. I don't even know who you are, and you've just invited yourself over. So anyway, a week later, he said I could come over for a spot of tea, which was nice. And I come over, I knock on the door opens up, I'm not kidding you. This guy had a really high voice, so I was expecting a short little guy. 6'5", 250, and this paw comes down at me, and I'm like, Mr. Buffington? He goes, oh, please call me Dugan. Guy's name was Dugan Buffington. Are you kidding me? Come on. Anyway, I don't mean to make fun of his name, but he was very eccentric. He invited me in. We had a nice cup of tea, and then he gets up. I'm talking, and he walks out of the room. He doesn't say anything, and he comes back a few minutes later, and he's carrying this box. And he goes, in this box are the cards, the remaining cards from the incomplete deck from the British Museum. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. And I try and open it up, and he goes, calm down. He opens up the box and he starts to tell me this story, revealing one card at a time. And that story and those cards and the artwork is what inspired my entire trilogy of books. So I wanted to show you, I brought a couple of the cards to show you. So there was hundreds of cards in the box, but I convinced him to give me a couple of them. So if you've seen my book, I was inspired to use this insignia on the back of this card for the logo of my book. And then he started to tell me the story. He said, this is the Heart Palace. This is the center of the capital city of Wonderland. And he went on to tell me the story one card at a time. This is my lead character's father, King Nolan. And this is Queen Red, her evil aunt. Alice's evil aunt. And this is her bodyguard, Hatter Madigan. And this is Queen Red's top assassin, the cat that can mutate into any kind of feline and part human, part cat, and it's her top assassin. So he went on to tell me the story. Now I only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to tell you a little piece of the story as Mr. Buffington told it to me, because he showed me that first card and he said, Frank, this is the Heart Palace. This palace is at the center of the capital city of Wonderland, and there's been a bloody civil war raging for years between Queen Genevieve, the Queen of Hearts, and her evil sister Red. But entertaining no thoughts of war is Princess Alice Hart. She's enjoying her 7th birthday. She's having a lovely time when she finds her best friend Dodge, and they run out into the garden, and he presents her a birthday gift. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a kitten runs up and jumps in her arms. And this kitten is wearing a bow and has a card on the bow that says, Happy Birthday, Alice, but it's not signed by anybody. So she picks up her kitten and she runs into the palace past the guards, and as soon as she gets inside, the kitten jumps from her arms, runs down a hallway, and disappears. Well, meanwhile, this kitten, meanwhile, her father, King Nolan, is racing back from neighboring Borderland to make the birthday party. He's late when his spirit Dane pulls up, and hanging over the plains is an eerie metallic hum. And he sees what would look like bales of hay to you and I, but they're card soldiers. They're stacked 52 high. And then these cards come flying off the deck, and they land, and they transform into these metallic soldiers, and they start marching for the palace. And he realizes his daughter, Princess Alice, and his wife, Queen Genevieve, are in grave danger. Why? Because that kitten is not a kitten at all. That kitten is downstairs in the basement of the palace, and it starts this gruesome transformation. Its legs stretch and expand until it's standing on 2 powerful back legs. Its paws become thick like a man. It attacks the guards. This is the top assassin for Red, the Trojan horse. Well, meanwhile, everybody's upstairs enjoying Alice's birthday party. No one has any idea what's going on, except Alice keeps looking under the table for something, and her mother's so frustrated. What are you looking for? And she goes, I'm looking for the kitten that can smile. And just then, the whole room goes quiet, and they hear this loud noise getting closer and closer, and they all turn to these 2 big doors, and there's an explosion. And standing in the dust and debris is someone Alice has never seen before. It's her evil Aunt Red. And Red looks around the room for her sister, and she says, off with her head. Off with her boring head. And the cat comes in, the card soldiers, Hatter Madigan, the bodyguard. He wears an imposing hat. It's his signature weapon. And when he's threatened, he throws the hat, turned into 6 blades, takes out the enemy, and boomerangs back in the form of a hat. You know, the hat makes the man. Anyway, there's this epic battle, and Alice and Hatter flee from the scene. They go to the one place they can escape. The legend is there's a portal from Wonderland to our world through the Pool of Tears. It's called the Pool of Tears because no one's ever come back. And they jump into the Pool of Tears, and they're separated. And Alice shoots out of a puddle, and she ends up in England. Her bodyguard shoots out of a puddle and ends up in Paris. And he goes on a mad search for 13 years. Meanwhile, she's in England, and she's thrown into an orphanage. She eventually gets adopted into the Little family, who are so taken with her imagination, and they introduce her to this guy named Charles Dodgson, who wants to write a book about her harrowing story. But the guy gets it all wrong and betrays her and presents the book to her 4 years later, and she sees on the cover her name is spelled wrong. And then there's a name that she doesn't recognize, and she goes, what is this name, Charles Dodgson? And he says, it's Lewis Carroll. I thought it was more fun. And she completely betrays him, and Alice shuts down. She makes a powerful wish. I want to fit in. I want to be like everybody else. And if you want to know what happens, I'll be sitting right over there, and you can pick up a book, and I'll sign it and give you the official stamp. The cool thing about the stamp, you can only get it here, and then you can sell the book for more money on eBay tonight. That's not bad. Anyway, thank you guys very much. Thanks for listening.